Good morning, everyone. It's Aubrey, recovering perfectionist queen of distraction / gardener, and here we are for our June garden tour. I can't believe that already a whole month has passed since we touched bases last on what's going on in the garden. We'll walk through the two gardens, the flower garden and then our vegetable garden, and then touch bases on all the fruit and just check out the things that have been growing. I'm going to update you guys on our new watering system, which I'm particularly excited about because that is something that has been drastically minimized as far as my responsibilities go. Just the more that we can automate, the better. So we'll talk about that. But for right now, let's just jump into what we've got going in the cut flower garden. We've got some little blooms that are popping up that I'm very excited to share with you guys. And of course, the chickens got in again. Okay, so here we are. You can see things have definitely started filling in. All of my snapdragons from last year are all in bloom, which just makes my heart so dang happy to have some early blooms in the garden. There are certain things that I planted from seed that just aren't working out, some things that are. The poppies that I planted in this bed are doing so good. The straw flowers, not so much. Honestly, at this point, I'm not really good at thinning, so I decided that I'm just gonna let the garden, it's a survival of the fittest situation. I have a volunteer parsley from a couple of years ago that is already going to seed, and I'm not going to complain because obviously that's going to reseed itself and I'm going to have, hopefully, a lot of parsley. It's one of my favorite herbs to work with. We have some little cosmos coming up. The asters that I planted in here aren't happening, but we're getting a lot of new nasturtiums from nasturtiums past that are popping up, which Alec absolutely loves. The cats ended up using this as a litter box again, so that's that. The zinnias and cosmos that I planted in here seem to be doing okay, and then the dahlias have had quite a bit of growth. Again, this bed and this bed there were beds that the cats also had gotten into, so I have grates and tomato cages on those. It's not pretty, but it's just kind of one of those functional situations where we need to protect the things the best we can while they have a chance to get established. And then if you've been with me for garden tours past, you may have remembered that the foundation, I guess, of our garden was just rocks. That was something that I wanted to eliminate. I had a friend who had had some extra sod from her lawn that she had put in her house that she had given me, and that has established itself pretty well in here. I think that we ended up putting that in November, and then over the course of the weekend, my husband did rake out the remaining rock in here just to make it as even as possible, and then we had scooped some dirt from an old flower bed that we had that had really just turned into the kids' mud bog over the years. Let's put that dirt here. I spread that all out. I spread some grass seed there, and then these brick or whatever edging pieces I had gotten from my neighbor when they had moved, as well as these paving stones. And I just think that this garden is going to be so dang whimsical once everything fills in. But there's Buttercup. I think she's the queen of destruction in this garden. I don't think it's so much Fergus, because I just watched her going ham trying to dig up some critter from its underground home. So, I mean, it's kind of one of those things. What am I going to do? I can only monitor this area so much. One thing I do want to talk about just real quick, these two flower beds that I have in front of the house, I have had my peonies growing, a couple there and then one in the other bed, and they have done so well this year. I'm kind of sick of maintaining those areas though, just needing to replant stuff every year. So one thought that I'm having is doing just as many peonies as I possibly can in that bed over there underneath the boys' playroom window. And then I really love these foxglove, and yes, I know foxglove is poisonous and you shouldn't have it around your kids, blah blah blah, but my children are very aware of the fact that it's poisonous. And so a thought that I'm having is just to have something that's very good at keeping itself alive, that I could plant in front of my bedroom window here, something that would be tall enough that I could see from my bedroom window. I think that just having a poison patch in the yard could be really whimsical. Just all I want is my yard to look like an English country garden. Is that too much for me to ask? And then over here, just real quick, we're gonna talk about the blueberries. Blueberries are doing great. I'm so happy with what we've been able to accomplish in this portion of the yard, though it does not look like much. I did put some weed paper down. We are going to, I think, cut down some poplar trees, some young poplar trees in the back, and then just create a border around this area, and then just pour down a thick layer of beauty bark. And then we do have this giant tarp. I'm trying to kill the weeds. This never ended up being a lawn. It's just a lot of dandelions, which I don't mind, but you know what? You can have too much of a good thing, and we certainly do. One thing I do want to do in this area for the blueberries and our raspberries over there is I do want to add some drip irrigation, which is something that we are going to do there specifically just to get started with that, and in a section out in the garden, which I'm going to tell you about the new RainPoint timer that we have for our garden out there in just a moment. But first, can we just take a moment to admire the janky brick road? Holy smokes, it is so beautiful. Also my sage, my goodness, this makes my heart so happy. Also, just one thing real quick, I love snapdragons. Obviously, I've got a ton around the yard already. And in this area here, I had sprinkled a ton of snapdragon seeds, and I don't think that anything is necessarily coming up, but basically everything that I planted right here is, so I have dug up some of those and I've popped those in a couple places in the garden. This bed here, I forgot to mention, I had planted some white marigold seeds and some snapdragon seeds there. The little baby snapdragons that were coming up ended up getting dug up by, I'm pretty sure, lovely little buttercup. So some of those, it's not the same variety, but whatever, it's at least a flower. I took some of those little baby snapdragons that are growing on the janky brick road and popped them in that bed. So I think that, you know, whatever pops up, I'm going to be thankful for. The goal for me really is just not to have a ton of space that is available for weeds. Okay, here we are. We've made it to the garden. Also, look at how well our neighbor's garage slash house is coming along. I'm very happy for them. Whew, gosh, it is. Whew, let's get things wrapped up ASAP. It is starting to get toasty. Okay, so a lot has been going on with this garden, and also a lot has not been going on. Things have definitely improved since we got a sprinkler. Our original plan was to do a drip irrigation system in the entire garden, but honestly, that's really just not affordable for us at this moment in time. We already have ended up spending way too much money on this garden, way more than we thought that we were going to. So we ended up just getting a hose that was long enough and this fan sprinkler from Walmart. The fan sprinkler will cover the majority of the garden. Unfortunately, that far back row, it doesn't hit at all. So I do have to be mindful about coming out here to make sure that I am hand watering that. We did just last night get a drip irrigation system to at least do that portion of the garden, because honestly, especially this time of year, I can just be so forgetful when it comes to watering things. And hand watering as we planted more and more was just getting to be far too much. And even just remembering to turn on the sprinkler in general. And that is where our RainPoint timer jumped in to save the day. So we are going to go over to our little spigot thing and I'm going to show you what's what. I'm very excited about it. Ta-da! Okay, here we are, our new RainPoint timer. Now, if you've been with me for garden videos past, like in past years, you may recall that the RainPoint timers are the timers that I put my trust in. I'm a very busy mom. My main priority is keeping my children alive, but it's definitely a bonus if I can keep all of my fruits and veggies and flowers alive. And the RainPoint timers certainly help with this. This is a new model for us this year. The model that we have closer to the house is one that I do have an app for that's connected via Bluetooth to my phone. And I absolutely love the bells and whistles with that. If I see the chickens in the garden pecking at my grass seed, I can manually turn it on while I'm in the house without having to run outside, because honestly, in this heat, like the more that I can stay inside, the better. This model does not have all the bells and whistles, but it does absolutely everything that I need it to do. So it's perfect for the fact that my Wi-Fi signal is not going to reach out here. This 2-zone timer obviously has 2 zones. So I currently have one that is attached to the sprinkler. I have that going for an hour every morning. So before I even wake up in the morning, the garden has already been watered for me. And then there is a manual setting. So the second side, I do just have our regular hose on. So those areas that I do need to hand water, like our potato drum and the section of the yard that isn't getting reached by the sprinkler, I just turn that on and bippity boppity boo, that's what you do. One thing about this that is a tad different than the RainPoint timer that I had used in the past is this one requires alkaline batteries. I normally use rechargeable batteries. So while the RainPoint timers have always been super easy to set up, I do love that when you do run into a little hiccup, like I had put in the rechargeable batteries and it wasn't working. So in their instruction manual, they do have a whole troubleshooting section, which I was able to go to, and I found my exact problem, found the exact solution, and everything is up and running. And that is one thing that I absolutely have always loved about RainPoint, is while everything is always so easy to set up, if I ever do run into a hiccup, solving the problem is probably equally just as simple. So that is that as far as watering goes. Having this whole timer system set up is just honestly such a huge weight off of my shoulders this time of year. I was really starting to feel overwhelmed when I was having to come out here and water by hand. At one point, I was watering almost the entire garden by hand with a watering can. So, you know, we're definitely making upgrades and moving up in the world in the watering department. Ooh, and then one more thing before we move on and I tell you about the tree that fell on the garden, I do want to mention that RainPoint timers are now available in Walmart stores. And then make sure to check the description below for an invitation code to join the RainPoint community and have the opportunity to win some free irrigation gear. In the description below, of course, I'll have links for the RainPoint timers. And then there is also a code RAIN15, I think that's what it is, for 15% off your order, which, you know, we love a good deal, right? Because gardening is expensive. Okay, so we've chatted about the positive, my positive watering experience with the garden. Let's chat about what is negative. A tree fell on the garden. Thankfully it was dead, so it was not super hard to get off. There also wasn't like a whole top section of a tree that ended up in the garden. The tree came right down in between our two apple trees. Thank goodness the tree that actually has apples on it is okay. I was very concerned. The little apple tree that has not been doing a ton did lose an entire branch. So obviously that was pretty disappointing, but hey, we at least finally have a tree with apples on it. Now, one thing we are currently struggling with is I think that our soil is extremely compacted. We ended up having some flooding happen after we had laid our rows initially, and we should have gone in and rototilled, but instead we just put nice fresh dirt on top. I don't think that was necessarily helpful. We also seem to be really struggling with a nitrogen deficiency. So I am currently trying to render the soil the best I can with some fish fertilizer that I have, but I do think that when I run out of that, I'm going to get some bat guano. That is something that a friend had used in her garden. I think that just having an application where I just sprinkle everything is going to be a lot easier than what I have been doing, is just refilling watering can after watering can of the fish fertilizer, and then obviously water, and having to go through and water all of this. It is extremely time consuming, but obviously it's one of those things where I want to make sure that we are using what we have. So I think what we're going to do now, we're just going to go through row by row. Alrighty, so this row here, I have our peas that are climbing that I'm hoping will be ready soon. The spinach that I had originally planted in there that was doing pretty good, thank you Alec, that has bolted. Even the tiniest plants have all bolted. We've just had such sporadic weather lately that I think like they're just in shock. They don't know what's going on. They just think that, you know, we need to make seeds right now, and so I'm going to just let that all do its thing. I'm going to let those go to seed, and then hopefully when things start to cool down in September, we'll have some spinach that comes up. So we're going to see what happens with that. We have some little kales that are coming up, and then some nasturtium that I transplanted from the garden. We have some pepper plants and our onions. The onion bulbs that my mom had given me, these are doing pretty good. The pepper plants that my husband got from the store are doing good. And then all of the other pepper plants in this row are all ones that my mom had started. The ones that I had started in my house and planted out here all died. So along this row here, also all of the cucumbers that I had started have pretty much all withered away. Thank goodness my mom had overstock of cucumbers at her house, so she gave me some to fill the gaps. I planted some sunflowers just in some gaps here, and then we have a couple watermelon plants that my friend had given me because her watermelons were growing and mine also died. Gosh, this is just not a good year for me. I'm killing all the things. So down this row here, we've got a variety of little lettuces coming up. And then we do have some cilantro that I'm sure is going to bolt. That finally ended up coming up, and I was thinking that I had actually planted it at the right time. Guess not. Just that's how this year seems to be going. But our beets are doing okay. They don't look great compared to the other people in my life, but we do have a few little cabbages that seem to be doing decent. Things could certainly be better, but they're not. So here we are. But down here in the corn area, things are doing again all right. Things seem to be doing better in these two beds here versus over there. And then in all of the corn area, I did plant a few squash plants. And then recently I did go through and I planted a blue lake bean, a climber bean, to hopefully climb with those corn, because we're trying to do the whole Three Sisters thing and see how that goes. So that's corn land. Now we're over in tomato land, and tomato land is doing pretty good for the most part. Again, all of the tomatoes that I started from seed died. Thank you, Mom, for all of the tomato plants. So we did try and do an experiment. Both of these rows of tomatoes do have the fish fertilizer, but the left side over here, we had crushed an egg into each one. Supposedly something about calcium, nutrients from the egg, blah, blah, blah. So this left side here, we had crushed an egg under each tomato plant when we planted it. I don't notice a huge difference, obviously. There are 2 tomato plants on that side that have died though, so I don't know if something stepped on it, possibly buttercup, but who knows? As long as we get some tomatoes, I'll be a happy camper. We've got our 2 zucchini plants from my mom's friend, or my mom, no, it was my mom. A couple tomatillos for my mom. And then in this little gap here, I've just planted a bunch of zinnia seeds, because again, it's one of those things where I'm filling the gaps with flowers because that makes my heart happy, and hopefully I can sell some. These are a sweet pepper variety, again from my mom. And then over here, a couple squash plants, a couple more watermelon plants from our friend. a ton of sunflowers along this row, just this whole row of this fence. I planted sunflowers, and then some asters down in here, and then some of those baby snapdragons from the janky brick road I did plant in here. And the amount of flowers that's going to hopefully happen in here, I'm extremely excited about. My right arm feels like it's burning. We were out on the boat yesterday and I got a little crispy. And then this section right here, I've just filled in with zinnia seeds, and then again, just sunflower seeds along the back. And then my mom, she did get us an artichoke plant. Apparently it's supposed to get like up to 4 feet wide and 6 feet tall. So I'm very curious to see what happens there. Hopefully I don't kill it. Everything's gonna be fine. The garden's gonna be great. I know it's not anything exciting. It's just a lot of me saying how I planted things, they've died, and my mom saved the day with her far superior plants. Hopefully someday I'll just be as good of a gardener as she is. I think that my husband and I are just kind of thrown for a loop this year with this garden, because in the past when we did have our garden over there, it had just done so amazing our first year of gardening. And so I think that we had an initial boost of confidence that wasn't necessarily called for. This year has been extremely humbling. So that's that. Let's go sit in the shade for a moment. We're gonna wrap things up. Oh my goodness. My mustache is sweating. Alrighty, well, that is that. Thank you so much for taking a chunk out of your day to hang out with me in the garden and just look at what's what. I feel like this time of year is always just kind of a weird limbo, like we've done all the things that we really need to do and now we just water and wait. And speaking of watering, thank you so much to RainPoint for another opportunity to try another one of their amazing products. I really just can't speak highly enough about the experience that I've had over the last few years using their timer. So again, check the description below for all of the relevant RainPoint information that your heart desires. If you are not yet subscribed and you would like to be, you are invited. Either way, I hope to see you next month for July's garden tour. I think as far as next week's video, we may end up taking a break, but we will see where the week takes us. I hope you're having a wonderful summer so far. Is it even technically summer yet? I don't know. I hope you're enjoying the weather wherever you are. I hope to see you next week or the week after. And as always, I love you, have fun, and be kind.